The Rebel Capitalist Show.
Let's talk about the current issues with the virus and personal liberty or
Sure.
lack thereof. And when this first came out, I was doing videos on the coronavirus with the help and the advice of my friend Eric Townsend, who runs a podcast called Macro Voices back in January, late January. And back then, my initial concern is that it would get this bad, but also I kept thinking back to 9/11 and the Patriot Act, and then I start seeing all these lockdowns and people who, and back then, we didn't have a lot of data. My thing was, okay, this is probably going to be worse than the flu, but I don't think the government should get involved. I think the government should give us the data that they have when they get it, and then let people and businesses make their own decisions. Because if we go down this path, again, like 9/11, we're going to cross a threshold where we won't come back from. In 2030, we fast forward 10 years, and we're going to have a lot fewer personal liberties than we did just in 2019. So I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, the slippery slope thing, I mean, look, you could argue that from you talking about this thing in January, right when it started bubbling up, people pretend, oh, I was talking about it in 2019, and, everybody's trying to out BS everybody about when they started talking about it, right? But the mission creep of this thing, that's what I'm worried about. And I think that's what you're getting to about the Patriot Act. That if you think about it this way, what were we told back in, say, March when the lockdown started? We're going to flatten the curve. That's what we're told. We're looking at numbers. We're going to flatten the curve, and then we'll open everything up. Should take about 2 weeks.
Just for the hospital space.
Yeah, for hospitals mostly, right? Because we don't want the hospitals to be overwhelmed, because then that causes a cascading situation throughout the country. We are now 7 months into this thing roughly, and no one says the phrase flatten the curve anymore. We don't even talk about that phrase anymore because we're well past that. We're at a point where it is now purely political. Look, I'm here in SoCal in LA where it is 85 and sunny every day. Now, the last 2 weeks, it happens to be 110 and fires coming out of the sky, but generally speaking, it's 85 and sunny. Yeah. And everyone here is healthy. Everyone here eats right. You go to the supermarket, everyone's in tank tops and tan and young and looks good. And that is not the totality of their health, obviously. You could look good and still be sick. But I bring it up because when I'm in a supermarket now and everybody's in a mask and you're looking around, I haven't heard someone cough or sneeze in months. I can't even remember. Because now nobody sneezes or coughs anymore publicly. Because they're afraid that they're going to be dragged off to the gulag.
Yeah, exactly.
So we have healthy people that have completely changed the way they live. And what I'm worried about is, just having a mask. So you go out, you got a mask on like this. Now, if you have sunglasses, nobody can see, and now you're like this. We're already spending, huge portions of our day online. But our ability to communicate with each other as human beings, that you can sit across from someone, look them in the eye, shake their hand, hug somebody, see your mom, whatever it might be. I haven't seen my mom since February back in New York. She's over 70. And she has a pre-existing condition, and she's worried if I hop on a plane. Now, we've talked about it. We're trying to figure out what to do. But there's many situations like that. People who have passed away and you can't go to your grandparents' funeral. I mean, some really horrific stories. But more concerning to me than the virus, especially at this point, is the lockdowns, and that we are destroying businesses, we are destroying lives, and I think there is untold horrors coming down the pike because of what we have done to people.
And the government has crossed a line where if they're willing to come in and just shut down businesses and just immediately do these things with just overnight, then let's say we get this in the rearview mirror. Let's say it's like the Spanish flu, where it's kind of a 3 waves, and next summer we're done with it. But then the next thing that comes along, well, now all of a sudden government, we've set a precedence where if we did it back in 2020, well, why can't we do it again because of XYZ reason? And we're just going to go to that place of kind of a police state a lot faster in the future than we otherwise would have.
Well, not only that, but think about the almost subliminal message that you send to the entrepreneur, to the small business person. If you own a pizza shop, you own a shoe shop, whatever you own, well, it's already hard, right? I mean, they do the numbers on this. They crunch the numbers. Something like 90% of restaurants fail in their first year normally. So that is a seriously tough line of work to do, that people put their livelihoods and their blood, sweat, and tears into. Now, not only do you have to battle competition and, hopefully having a menu that people like and all this stuff that makes the food service industry so difficult. But now you also have to go, oh, and by the way, at any moment, the government could just shut me down for 6 months and I'm going to have to, rejigger my entire store to now only seat 4 tables outside and only be pickup and everything else. It's not a functional way for people to live. And I just moved. I'm still in LA, but I'm in walking distance to a couple of restaurants here. And I haven't seen any of them open yet. And it's sad. When I look in those windows, there's an old school pizza place. Just looks like a New York City pizza joint. And I look in that window and it looks, I'm from New York. So when I see an old school pizza joint, I'm like, man, I want to go there. I want to see what's going on there. In this place, there's a little bar. It looks like Little Italy. It looks fun and good for families. And I look in there and I'm like, this is sad what they have done to it's the name, I don't want to give the name of the place, but it's the name of a woman. And what I think that this woman, it's either hers now or maybe it's her kids or something. It looks like it's been there for a long time. What they have done to this family, and there's a gajillion examples of that.
Yeah, that's right. And also the liability. You're going to have much more costs as a small business owner, because if someone comes in and let's say they were to get the virus and say they got it at your establishment, and there's all these lawsuits, your insurance rates are going to go through the roof. There's just a lot of unintended consequences that is going to be a result of the government getting heavy-handed with what's gone on. And I spoke to a gentleman on FinTwit named Jim Bianco, just to give you some context, and he pointed out the fact that during the GFC, economic output went down by 6%. So it went from 100% down to 94%. That gave us the GFC. And if you take it down to 75%, that gave us the Great Depression. So if you think back in March and April, everyone is saying, well, if we could just get back up to 75% economic output, we could kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel. But they don't understand that just gets us back to the Great Depression. And once we get done with these stimulus checks and the mortgage, moratoriums and whatnot, I think there's what we say in our business is there going to be a V-shaped recovery, sure, in the stock market, but it doesn't necessarily mean that there's a V-shaped recovery in the real economy.
Look, we've added an element of fear and uncertainty on top of the fear and uncertainty of the virus, right? So it's like anyone that's listening to this, if you were to think about in your neighborhood, somewhere there's an office building. That office building is most likely empty right now. Think about what it'll take for that office building not to be empty. You need a mayor that's going to put his butt on the line. You need a governor who's going to put his butt on the line. You need local officials and your local Congress people to all be willing to say enough of this. We got to start going out and living again. Just, we're not supposed to be hamsters in a cage. And in many ways, that's what we are at the moment. That's not diminishing the reality of COVID, but actuaries, what do they do for a living? They're always managing risk to decide how much you're going to have to pay for health insurance or car insurance or whatever else. And it's a cold, hard reality, right? You're going to have to pay more for insurance if you're elderly and you have pre-existing conditions and you smoke and whatever else versus a 20-year-old who's young. And I think we have to start having some honest discussions about, all right, let's open up. I mean, my personal choice at this point would be you open up the entire country, you tell every establishment, you set your rules, make it, whatever your rules are, make it very clear. If you want to have someone taking temperatures at the door, so be it. If you want to open up at 50% capacity, so be it. Let them do it. And then after a few weeks, let's see. And you know what? There might be some bump. There might be some deaths. But the unfortunate reality is that it exists. Life is risky. You could walk out the door of your house and get hit by a car. It's just a fact.
Yeah. And that gets us to herd immunity faster.
And so right now we're slowing down the herd immunity. How are we supposed to get to herd immunity if we won't let young people get sick, even though we know young people are surviving at something like 99.997%?